ask ourselves, how, and these are internal questions, how have I been hurt by my own people? And a lot of times we as people of color are responding to how we've been hurt by our own people, how we've been rejected, and you know what we say, so-and-so can't do anything for me. We have that's a form of internalized oppression. Think about when someone of color who is unrelated to you stood up for you rather than attacking. When did I begin to feel, and these are questions to ask yourself, when did I begin to feel resistance to the idea of internalized oppression? And a lot of times the resistance that we are expressing, and particularly when you're young, is sometimes detrimental to you, but it is resistance nonetheless. A lot of times young people are resisting the boxes that we are putting them in. They may not be able to understand it, fully articulate it, but they are resisting and they are resenting it. And so they are acting in a particular way to show that. But what they're really adopting are things that sometimes are harmful to them, whether it's escaping into different kinds of activities that are unhealthy. But it often is a resistance that is destructive. And what I think the biggest thing that people of color have to do is move beyond being victims. There's kind of a resentment, when you walk. Somebody said one time, as a Black American, if you're in some place, wherever it is, and people think, they kind of look at you as though you're not supposed to be there, you're supposed to be any place that you are. And that's kind of, it seems like an arrogant way, and maybe it is, but that's moving beyond being a victim or feeling embarrassed or feeling that I don't belong. You have the right, you have the responsibility to be everything you can be, and that's what we need to show our children, talk to our brothers and sisters, our mothers and so on. And when I'm in stores, one of the things I do is, I remember when I was a little kid, it was as though little white kids were always cute, but words of beauty for Black kids just weren't there. It was like your hair was nappy, or somebody told me when I was a little kid, she's Marani, or, they were always negatives. And when I see little kids of color in a supermarket or wherever on the street, I always tell them how beautiful they are. You are so beautiful, and you are so smart, because they don't hear those messages. And our children need to hear them, and we need to hear them. We need to hear them as Black people. So I'm talking to people of color and Black people about what you need to do to help overcome internalized oppression. You may seem a little too haughty at times when you first come into your own about it, but it's okay. It's okay, because that kind of confidence, believe you me, Europeans walk around this society feeling like that's who they are, and they have that confidence, and their way of life is the best, while they've taken many, many things away from you. So I guess the other thing I want to say is we need liberation movements, and we have to work in coalition, because part of moving along this continuum, the only time there have been really successful changes in this society have been when people worked in coalition with each other. And I've moved personally from being a separatist to understanding that without coalition in this culture, you will not be successful. More than likely, you will not be successful. You want transformation, and you will get results from confronting the oppression that is in this society. Stay away. I tell young people, sometimes you think what is keeping it real is really being very harmful, because what you say is keeping it real may not be real. And I wanted to say that because I know there were students here today, and I've had my students say to me in the past, we just keeping it real, Ms. Shakir, we just keeping it real. I'm like, that is not keeping it real. I told them, that is not keeping it real. What you're doing is hurting yourself. So overcome being a victim, step up. Okay, I want you to read this and talk about cheap or unpaid labor, source, politically disenfranchised, all those things. Oversex, contributing to overpopulation. Everybody see those? Who are we talking about? Who are we talking about? Come on, out with it. Who are we talking about? Who are we talking about? We're talking about black men? Who are we talking about?
Someone said white people.
Which
white
one?
People?
White male.
Which one?
This is a particular group of people.
Huh? Think about this
Okay.
struggle that's still going on today across
All right.
the pond.
When we look at this, these are exactly the terms, and most black people in here say, "No, you're talking about black people." This is the English describing the Irish. This is the English describing the Irish, exactly.
And even calling the Irish
A different race.
A different race, a separate race. How do you justify a separate race that you're oppressing? Through the colonialism and the exploitation of the land in Ireland.
Right. So the same thing has been done to people of color in this society. Exactly the same thing. In order to exploit and for economic purposes, you become all these things. So the first thing you need to do is begin washing yourselves, washing your mind of the belief of these things, because that's a projection. Somebody looks uncomfortable with that. Somebody looks real comfortable with it. A couple of people. All right, I'm moving fast. This is what is done to subjugated groups. When people subjugate, they justify the subjugation, and this is what they project onto the persons or group that they're subjugating.
Back in the 60s, there was a movement to move into more on the college level. African American studies, women's studies, Latino studies, studies of people other than white European Americans. And it's all very well and good. But what this traditional approach to multiculturalism, which also moved over into the public school district, really focuses on heroes and holidays. It's not as substantive as anti-racist multiculturalism. I wish we had the T-chart. Let me just move into schools now. And I know many of you have had experience with the public school system, as we have had. In the traditional multiculturalism, the histories, the authentic histories, the lives are not integrated into the curriculum. They're seen as add-ons. The European perspective is still seen as the norm. As with Black History Month in February, which many schools, that's the only time that they look at Black History Month, they focus on the most famous people, but never on the lesser known people or people who are still alive today. And what this really amounts to is ethnic cheerleading, which is very nice, and you get kind of these images of everybody holding hands and making nice. And
So kumbaya, who said
culture,
that?
celebrating
That's a
culture,
kumbaya.
but nothing really changes. The power dynamic never changes. It's very limited. And it doesn't really delve into what produces the inequality. And it's really kind of a feel-good, you know, you get that warm and fuzzy feeling. And then also there's this idea that if you teach little Black and Latino kids about their culture, somehow it's going to improve their self-esteem. Well, I believe that their self-esteem is improved by that, but also by success, because nothing succeeds like success. And really getting them engaged and involved and having success in the classroom.
Well, let me just say one thing.
What?
You know the celebrations you have where people dress up and they bring ethnic foods and you share that?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of traditional multiculturalism.
Mm-hmm.
Anti-racist multiculturalism is a little different and goes a little further. So now,
It moves in